Okay, so our next panel is business intelligence in the cloud, and we will just get ourselves
Phil Wainewright
mic'd up. But let Ken do a quick introduction while we get our panelists sorted.
It's an old friend, not an old in terms of chronologically, a good friend. Phil Wainewright from Procullux Ventures will be chairing the next session. Go get him.
Okay, thanks, Ken, for your fulsome introduction. And if you need to grab a soda or water, this is the time to do it. We're just going to get our other two panelists mic'd up, and then we'll be getting started. I won't do an introduction for myself. The bio's in the show guide if you want to look me up. I will just say that I've been following the cloud for probably more than a decade now, and I think it's phenomenal the changes that it's wreaking on the way that business is done. The most striking thing is that today I think we all take it for granted that we're going to have the information we need where we need it. And certainly we're getting used with the web now to find information at the drop of a hat. If only it was so easy to find the same information about what's going on in our own companies. And to some extent that's the challenge of business intelligence, to keep up with the developments on the web and then to fold them into the same information analysis so that we can not only look at information that's internal to the business, but also information that's available from outside. And so then we need to deliver that within cloud applications. And a lot of what we're going to be focusing on in this afternoon's conversation, I think, is how we do that successfully as SaaS providers in meeting the needs of our customers. So what I'd like to do, first of all, to kick things off, is to ask each of our panelists to spend a couple of minutes just with a few brief sentences introducing themselves, and perhaps also a quick take to conclude their self-introductions with what they think is the key issue facing business intelligence in the cloud. So if I can start with Roman Stanek, who's on my immediate left. Roman, would you like to do a quick introduction?
Absolutely. I hope it works. Roman Stanek, founder, CEO of GoodData. GoodData is 4 years old cloud analytics, data warehousing, data integration company based here in the city. Our main goal is to create an end-to-end product so that our customers don't need to actually build any BI infrastructure, don't need to build any data warehousing or any data integration infrastructure. They essentially outsource a BI problem to us, and we kind of get their data on one side, and we deliver fully finished reports and dashboards and analytics on the other side. And that was kind of, that's the key to our success. And I believe that that's kind of the key to success to BI in the cloud. BI in the cloud has to be like any other BI, any other cloud-based system, has to be end-to-end, has to really work out of the box for the business user, because anytime you actually integrate technologies, and I'm not talking here about ETL, I'm talking about more complex, hosting and integration in the cloud. The problem becomes too difficult for business people, and we don't see the kind of adoption, and we don't see the kind of customer satisfaction as we see from a fully integrated solution.
Okay, yes, and adoption, I think, is one of the things we will probably come back to talk about later on. So next along is David Abramson, who is Director of Product Management at LogiXML. David.
Great, thanks. My name is David Abramson. I'm with LogiXML. And LogiXML, we've been in business, our products out there in the market now for a little over 10 years. And our focus is really on empowering ISVs and SaaS companies to embed business intelligence capabilities, dashboards, interactive data visualizations, reports as part of their product offerings, and with a focus mainly on both a cloud and on-premise architectures. So we work really well with the high scalability models of cloud-based solutions and the like to really enable those BI capabilities within other product sets. I think in general, with all business intelligence solutions, particularly when moving towards a cloud deployment model. One of the key challenges is going to have to be on the data side. So there's obviously a data explosion happening these days. Everybody's talking about big data, data on-premise, data on the cloud, and I think it's important when selecting or working with business intelligence tools to be able to connect to, integrate with, and work with data in all of its various forms and locations.
Right, okay, so yes, I think the proliferation of data is becoming a huge challenge, certainly for businesses, and help with that is really key, isn't it? So next along, I'm pleased to introduce Eileen Boerger, who is president of CorSource Technology Group. Eileen, welcome.
Thank you, Phil. Yes, I'm Eileen Boerger, president of CorSource Technology Group, and what we do is we provide strategic consulting, software development, and technical staffing services that all scale on demand to deliver to our customers who are ISVs and SMBs, deliver faster time to market and competitive tactical edge. And so what we do and focus on for ISVs right now is kind of in three areas. One is cloud, helping ISVs move to the cloud, like taking on-premise to SaaS. Mobile, getting them to understand what their mobile strategy should be and implementing that. And lastly, a practice that we just introduced a month ago is helping ISVs and SMBs understand BI. How do they get to BI, and what tools should they use? What are the things that they should understand about moving to BI? And what I believe is the biggest key issue in cloud-based BI is really kind of what you said, is that it's the data. There's so much structured and unstructured data that's around, and being able to take that and somehow integrate it in a way that people can get to it, and also so that the data can be analyzed and then delivered in a just-in-time fashion to those users that really need it when they need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big challenge, isn't it? Doing all of that, and the more of that the solution can do, then the better it is for the business user, which of course is what it's all about at the end of the day. It's not a technology issue so much as the technology just has to work, but it's what the business people can do with it that matters. And that's something we'll be coming back to as well. So finally, Vincent Lamb is Product Marketing Director of Information Builders, a company that has certainly been in this business for quite a while now, hasn't it, Vincent?
Yes, my name is Vincent Lamb with Information Builders, and yeah, I would say that, definitely we've been around for about 36 years doing BI, and we still continue to do it, and, the cloud is such an amazing thing. If you think about just how fast technology evolves and how much we've seen, it's amazing. And the cloud is definitely here to stay. It's definitely an important part of BI as a whole for the industry, and we're strong believers in that. Now, on our part, of course we're here to solve business problems, but we do really three things. We focus on business intelligence, we focus on integrating applications and data, and we focus on the integrity of all of it, because it's, back to the points that some of my colleagues up here have mentioned, it really does come down to the data. Business intelligence is terrific. The tools are continuing to evolve across the board. And at the end of the day, the accessibility of the data is very important, and the quality of the data is also very important. And those are really foundational to good BI.
Right, yes, and that's always been an age-old problem, hasn't it? But it's nonetheless important today. So again, that's something we can talk about. I just need to say to the technical team at the back that someone should reset the timer here so that I can see when we're due to finish. The first question I want to put is the first question I want to put here is really, to what extent has the cloud changed the nature of BI? Are we fundamentally talking about the same thing, or is it a different thing now that we're in the cloud era? And Vincent, you alluded to that, so perhaps I can ask you to kick off with that.
I know you're looking for a yes or no answer, and I'm going to be one of those guys, unfortunately, that's going to give you a both answer. In the sense that the cloud definitely is, I was thinking about this the other day, and it kind of almost seems like anytime you go into some sort of new paradigm, there's always a sense that it has to be some sort of zero-sum game, that in order to go to cloud, you have to lose out on-premise. And that's really not the case. I think cloud is an amazing offering, and it's an offering that, honestly, it's not zero-sum. what happens is you have a demographic. You have people out there that are itching to use BI, and they would never consider it if it wasn't in the cloud. So there's an audience there. On the flip side, there's an audience that would be much more comfortable, either because of familiarity, regulations, or whatever it may be. And they want on-premise. And there's an audience that's also segmented. And then there's an overlapping audience, of course. And so it really isn't zero-sum. It really is, the whole entire audience for BI has grown because of cloud. And I think this is just tremendous. It's great for the entire industry. It's good for us. It's good for everybody up here. We all win. On the other aspect of, has it changed? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the benefits of cloud, of course, are non-trivial. The speed of deployment, the flexibility of being able to start up and running on a whim almost. That's something that clearly you can't do with the older style. And so, at the end of the day, I think both are here to stay. Cloud is definitely here to stay. On-premise is still here to stay. And they're going to continue. And part of the interesting paradigm really is the interaction between the two. What happens when you have an environment where you're part cloud and part on-premise? How are you going to get that to work nicely together? And that's one of those things that, from our perspective of information builders, we're very concerned about that, and it's something that we focus on as well.
Okay, so Cloud has built a bigger audience for BI.
Absolutely.
It's introduced perhaps new factors into BI, but it's not a zero-sum game. So
No.
BI still exists on-premise.
Absolutely.
I disagree.
Okay, well, go ahead.
I started this company with a vision of zero-sum game, where in 5 years, cloud BI, so fundamentally better managed, delivered, orchestrated, and so on, that no on-premise solution can ever compete. It's a model. We just had presentation about mobile. We just had, you look at where IT is going, and I know that it's going to take, cloud BI. It's almost like the last, bastion of IT. But I absolutely believe that, this is a zero-sum game. Like anything in the IT these days, it's zero-sum game. We are moving from Exchange to Gmails and hosted services. We are moving from, physical servers to virtual and cloud-based servers and so on. I absolutely believe it's a zero-sum game.
So why is it so different? I mean, what does the cloud do that makes BI impossible in its conventional form?
Oh, it's again, it was it's the unlimited resources that you don't have, when you actually deploy it on premise. It's the fact that it's a managed service. It's actually delivered by, company that does it like, a professional service. It's almost the same analogy as, I could buy Exchange and hardware and hire a Exchange admin and give my users a subpar experience and give them a 1 megabyte inbox, or I could go to Google and give them, fully managed service with 50 gigabytes or 5 gigabytes of storage and everything that comes with it. That's the kind of, it's not, slightly better. Hosted services from professional companies are 10 times, 100 times better. The second thing is it works in the world of mobile and disconnect and devices on the move and kind of, everything that actually, where IT is going. And the third thing is the collaboration fact. The on-premise software were never designed for collaboration, and everything we do in the world now is all about, social collaboration and so on. And that's where the on-premises tools will never catch up, and that's why it's zero-sum game.
So we have two extremes of the argument, conveniently sat at opposite ends of the line. So, but Eileen, let me bring you in, because I know that you help ISVs take applications, including BI, into cloud platforms. So does it change when you do that?
Can I just make one point?
But I think you will get right to reply later
I just
on,
want to
Vincent.
clarify again, I think the statement that I had in the beginning is still valid in the sense that, in a word, coexistence. That's what I'm talking about. I think the benefits of, that's why we're here. That's why Information Builders is here at this conference, because we absolutely believe in the cloud. So, to everything that was said earlier about the benefits of the cloud, we absolutely agree. Absolutely. And, again, coexistence is kind of the takeaway. I think there are benefits to the cloud, there are benefits to on-premise, and they're both great.
Well, one of the things we might try and get to as the discussion progresses is whether coexistence is possible, and I think we need to explore more what it is that the cloud makes different, and whether that is just going to wipe out the competition from on-premise, or whether we're going to have coexistence. So, I mean, this conversation will run and run, and obviously I want to bring in some contributions from the floor as well, because I'm sure some of you have got views on this as well. But without forgetting our mission of also talking about, well, what's the practical implications for ISVs who want to offer some form of BI to their customers. But Eileen, coming back to the question that I posed, do you advise the ISVs that you speak to actually approach BI differently when they put it into the cloud?
Yeah, well, you know, one of the things when in talking with customers when they want to do BI is what for? Okay, you know, what are the things, like for an ISV, for instance, what is their product and what types of data are they providing and what do they normally want to integrate with, what do their users do? So we have to really understand that. But one of the things, you know, when you ask the question, has BI, cloud BI changed the nature of BI? And I think the answer is definitely yes, and I think it's positively yes, okay? And the main reason I say that is, you know, the cloud itself has introduced so many different variables to the environment. You know, just the massive volume, as you stated earlier, but the massive volume of unstructured data that's out there. And so I think some of the older, I'll call them older BI solutions, would never have understood that they would have to do that, okay, because that was not in that environment. And so, so really, the whole nature of cloud BI, it's going to take into account all of that, all the different kinds of data that are available out there, whether they're structured, they're unstructured, and cloud BI will take into account that there is some data that is still on premise. It has to, because it's a fact of life, okay? But, you know, in advising potential clients or clients, you know, the thing is what exactly is your product doing, and what's the nature of your data, and what should it integrate with, and then design a solution around that. But we pretty much always talk about cloud.
Right, so, and of course the business context, I mean, clearly most of Vincent's customers are largely on-premise, whereas Roman's customers are probably skewed towards in the cloud. And so you may actually, for each of your customer bases, each be right. And that's probably part of the debate. But before we go further with that, let me bring
I would also add, we also have cloud customers as
well. Of course you do, okay. Yes. And I'm sure that Roman also has on-premise customers.
No, I believe that in 5 years, no, 5 is too soon, but at some point you will only have cloud customers. So.
We'll be there anyway. So
yes, yeah, I hear you. I absolutely hear you.
So at least we can agree on that. So David, let me bring you in as well for what's your perspective on this debate so far?
So yeah, I think we all do agree that the future direction of business intelligence, and for that matter, most business applications is moving to the cloud. I think obviously from a lot of the points that Roman made, it certainly makes sense to move a lot of the core business applications, including business intelligence, up into the cloud. And you know, from LogiXML's perspective, one of the things that we really focus on is really an embedded BI model. So what that enables us to do is not only work with other applications that are moving to the cloud, where we can embed business intelligence capabilities into those products and services, but as our on-prem customers think about moving towards SaaS hosted and cloud models with the embedded BI that we're offering, they can also then decide to take that into the cloud as more and more of those applications move that direction as well.
And just to be clear, your embedded BI can either sit on-premise or in the cloud?
That's correct. Yep.
So effectively you're selling a licensed software that people embed into something which is either in the cloud or on-premise.
Right. Yeah, we're really enabling that model so that as software companies, SaaS providers, as they decide to move their applications towards cloud services model, cloud infrastructures, they'll be able to take the BI components with them, you know, through working with tools and products like what LogiXML offers.
Okay, so
and that's where our model is completely different.
Right.
You know, we only sell BI as business service. The way you buy Salesforce, Gmail, you know, the way you use Google Maps and so on. So it can be embedded, but it's still always delivered as a business service. So we do the full hosting and SLA and integration and so on.
Right, so we've got different different slants on that issue here. But what is the issue here in terms of putting the right information in front of business users? Because Eileen raised the question, you know, it's all about the business context. And I'm sure that a lot of the ISVs here thinking about business intelligence in respect of their product are thinking about, well, how do I put that into the product that I'm delivering? So how do we, what is the best way to get the information that business users need to them at the right speed? I mean, and does the cloud help with that? Vincent, yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah, you know, I would say that the cloud definitely, I mean, ultimately, you know, I mean, as much as we talk about the cloud and various technologies, at the end of the day, we're talking about business problems, right? And so it really is about how do we solve a particular need that the business has for this information? How do they derive some value out of this, right? And so there are lots of ways to certainly do that, and there's certainly some preferable ways. And you know, to some of the points that were mentioned earlier, one is certainly, you know, the different types of information, structured and unstructured. You know, I think we've all come from, we can all see the transition where, you know, homogeneous data just doesn't exist in any way, shape, or form anymore, not in the way you expect it. You know, I mean, the cloud has enabled terrific paradigms like mashups and so forth, where we really get the opportunity to get all this heterogeneous data, and a lot of it is unstructured. And, you know, making good use of that somehow is key, obviously. Another big thing, I think, is latency. The expectation that you're dealing with, you know, day-old data as you're looking at a dashboard, or a month-old, or, you know, doesn't cut it. You know, people are expecting instant gratification and are expecting the right answers at that given moment. And so the latency has really been pushed down to really, you know, more of a real-time model. And, you know, that's, from our perspective, that's our, you know, that's what we see in the market. That's what we cater to as well. And, you know, there are those that don't need that type of, you know, latency, low-level latency that's real-time, and that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, I mean, again, a different business need has a different business requirement. So, you know, to that point, I think the cloud, in our eyes, is you know, is extremely valuable. And if you talk about it as both as a platform to certainly run the applications on, it's tremendous. And also as a source of data, it's tremendous. You know, both push and pull, you know, to be able to get to this data, to update this data perhaps. I mean, it's tremendous. So, you know, there's just so much that you can leverage when we talk about all these offerings with the cloud and different types of data that we're talking about here.
And of course, that need to bring in external sources of data so that you're mixing together the external data, the internal data, it all preferably has to be real-time or near real-time data. That's a very different paradigm from the conventional view of business intelligence, isn't it? Where we constructed data warehouses and it was all done post-fact, rather than being a real-time proposition.
Yeah, so again, it's really about the business use case. And, you know, oftentimes there is a certain amount of tolerable latency, you know, and that's fine. You know, again, it really depends on what you're looking for. We have use cases where people really do need something quicker, you know, and you talk about terms like operational BI, for example, you know, and a real-time data warehouse and things of that nature. So those things exist as well. And you know, usually when we talk about the cloud, typically speaking, especially with cloud data sources, we are talking about, you know, something that is real time. You know, people don't tend to buffer the cloud. The cloud is instantaneous. And that's an advantage that we want to capitalize on, and we do. And so that's where we go towards that real time.
And presumably that need to do real time is one of the reasons you put your platform in the cloud in the first place.
Oh, no, it's yeah, exactly. And I actually, you know, from my perspective, latency, low latency in operational BI is given. You know, it's all about, like, you know, I don't want to see what happened months ago. I want to know what happened today, an hour ago, and so on. But it actually puts so much emphasis on SLAs. And that's why, you know, again, I'm so much focused on BI as a business service, because, you know, historically, BI always had a terrible SLA. It's up, 50% of the time data, it's not being loaded all the time. There is always some transformation that fails and so on. So being able, to go to business user and say, this is your operational BI, this is actually how you can make decisions, every day, every hour, and it comes with 99.9, percent SLA on both, availability of the system, but also quality and availability of the data. That can only be achieved in the cloud.
Eileen, what about this infrastructure issue? I mean, when an ISV wants to put BI in the cloud, they've got to think about getting the infrastructure side of it right, haven't they, so that they can deliver that real-time interaction.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really kind of true of putting anything in the cloud is really what should that infrastructure look like. But something that I wanted to kind of add to this last discussion too was a different way of looking at it in terms of data is one of the things as I've thought about this and have talked to other people is, and have seen happen now in some larger companies, is that people need to start looking at data in different ways. It's not just data that resides in an application over here or data that resides in the cloud over here. It's really data that's really, it's all should be looked at as shared data and sort of as data services. I mean, there are some large companies now that actually have chief data officers and they're trying to look at data in that way. And then they could, and then what they're looking for from some of these BI solutions is a way then to manage those data services. And so that's new ways of managing the data, storing the data, retrieving the data. I mean, something like, Amazon Web Services worked very hard on that in order to be able to have a whole new architecture for data so that it was quick and it was fast and it handled all types of data. So that's just a different way of looking at what needs to happen.
And David and Rowan, I both want to ask you about this embedded question as well, because we've talked about bringing in information from lots of different places. Does it make sense to embed all of that information into specific applications, or is it better to bring it all together in a separate analysis application?
So I'm certainly a bit biased on that point because I do definitely believe that embedding the business intelligence capabilities within existing applications is certainly the way to go.
And why is that? Why do you think that's the place to put this?
Well, so I think historically business intelligence was always very separate, and then it became sort of the domain of just a few individuals within an organization, and it became very siloed in terms of how it was being utilized. And therefore, the adoption rate and the overall utilization of the business intelligence capabilities were not really providing enough value overall to the organization. As you move towards more of an embedded model, obviously you're getting a lot closer to the business applications. You're integrating with more familiar interfaces, and you're getting closer to the data sources that you're looking to analyze and report off of. And I think that's certainly going to drive adoption. It's going to get more people working with the tools, and I think the trend of cloud is certainly helping that as well. As more and more of these applications are moving in the cloud, the distribution model is changing quite a bit. So the distribution model as well, traditionally, again, was always a very siloed version of those applications. And as you move more of these capabilities over to the cloud, now you're going to find that wider adoption rates, more users working with the data and the capabilities, and it's going to add just to the overall value that BI brings to the organization.
Is it reasonable for me to make this an either-or proposition, Roman?
I see it both ways. It's embedded BI is excellent if you want to see your data in a context of business process. So I'm a sales rep, I see my pipeline in the context of my Salesforce application. I'm a support engineer, I see it in context of my help desk application. But sometimes that context can be actually, so that's huge, and I believe, I'm a big believer in embedded BI, but sometimes that context can be actually too limiting. So if I want to know my lead to cash, none of the actual application, covers the whole lead to cash. So I actually have to have a separate dashboard that covers that whole business process. So I can again, I see our customers using, highly embedded and, in context analytics, but I also see them building, digital marketing dashboards that actually get data out of, 10, 15 different applications.
Yeah,
Yes,
can I
Eileen.
add to that one? Because, I agree that it's both. Okay, and one of the things, we have a customer right now who is actually embedding BI into their application because they do realize that their customers want to be able to have at their fingertips the data and analysis of the data that they've put in with that. So it's the context, just like you said, David. And so when an ISV is doing that and they're putting, embedding it, you can understand why they would do that because it's in the context of their product. But I also believe that when you take one of those products and you put it into somebody's business in an enterprise, they are also going to want to integrate with the other things that are there. And so in that case, that will be an outside, app as opposed to embedded. So I think it is both, and I think they will work well together.
Now, I'm conscious that we've got about 10 minutes left of the session, so I think this is the point where we need to say, if you want to make a contribution or put a question from the floor, then we're going to start taking questions from the floor. If you do please wave your hand in the air, and particularly if you're in the center, the bright light means that you have to wave your arm very vigorously if I'm going to notice that you're asking a question. Now, one of the things that always concerns me about business intelligence is, well, are business people intelligent enough to do it? And I think it's one of the big problems, isn't it, with BI particularly. That I don't know. People talk about business analysts. I'm not sure I've ever met a business analyst. I think it's a pretty rare breed. These people who understand how to do all this kind of stuff with pivot tables and whatever else it is you have to do with these very esoteric analysis tools. But today, the cloud means that we can put this powerful stuff in the hands of people who just do not know what information even they should be looking for, let alone how to analyze it. And to me, that's the biggest obstacle, I think, for the BI vendors, whether they're in the cloud or on-premise, to actually get over, isn't it?
Well, you actually, you bring up a very... I would actually, because we've been in the industry for so long, I would say it's definitely a stereotype that sort of has been there in the past. And I think in a sense in the past, there was the sort of thing where this was such a niche market, right? Business intelligence was something, and it took and there were advanced tools, and we're of the persuasion we don't actually believe that business intelligence is meant for just the analyst. I think the analysts that like to crunch numbers, they can have the tools available to them, but we really do believe that BI is about giving information to the people that need it, and the people that need it might not be the analyst. The people that need it might be a guy on the front line who doesn't even know he's using a BI tool, and he's just finding out information that's critical for him to do his job better. And that's the beauty of BI. I think ultimately, we can all agree on this, that if BI can empower a person to make decisions better, we are giving them tremendous value. And the fact that they may not even know it's called BI, it's terrific. There shouldn't be a stigma associated with it, but there is that range. And there is a certain demographic that will require more advanced tools, that want predictive capabilities, that want to have some sort of models to follow. That's terrific too, that's important. And so the more people we can get BI into the hands of, the better off we'll all be.
We have two solutions to the problem. I see two solutions to the problem. The first one is, data has to tell a story. When end user goes to a dashboard, it has to tell a story. It cannot be a isolated chart, isolated report, difficult to understand visualization, and so on. So that's why you see such a strong movement into best practices around visualization. What should be the story, and how do we actually navigate the user through the data so that actually user can spend 1 minute looking at the dashboard and know what's going on, 5 minutes looking through the dashboard and kind of following the data story, or half an hour. The dashboard have to be kind of well designed, tell the data story. And the second solution is we never sell open-ended BI tool. Our customers would come to us and say, I don't know what to measure. I'm a business user. I don't actually even know what metrics measure, what are the benchmarks, and so on. So our solutions always come with point of view. This is how you should measure your domain. This is how you should measure the business problem, that you are solving. And that's where I see the value of cloud BI, it doesn't come as, again, open-ended BI tool. It comes as a business service targeted to a, a role, a persona, vertical, and so on.
Now, let me take a question, because I know we have one at the back there.
Today we've seen the presentation about the IBM Watson solution, which is also, I would say, kind of BI approach. So this is artificial and I would say intellect in some way, but it's also BI because it provides some information for decision making and etc. And I maybe raise the question: are we coming into the era where we are dividing the BI solution into, I would say, separate pieces or something like that based on the data? First one is the old school, like the one they did before. For example, the data that is more secured, where we're generating the report, we're generating some predictions based on that. It's more business related to what we did so far. And another one solution is, for example, like Watson Series, which is using the publicly available data, which is not exactly for the, I would say, for the company related data, but publicly well generated by somebody else with not 100% of trust, but it also produces some results in business intelligence. Yes.
Right, so are there two schools or even multiple schools of BI, the classic enterprise BI and then the publicly sourced BI and maybe some other classes? What do you think, David?
Sure, well, I think that there's definitely different use cases for business intelligence, but I also think there might be a slight misconception out there that business intelligence is all about the software. I think, in general, yeah, software tools help you generate good business intelligence capabilities and produce useful dashboards, metrics, and visual tools. But to some of the points that the other folks on the stage have been making, I think it's also about best practices. It's about having the right the vision and mindset to deliver the capabilities that matter to the business users. And I think one of the great trends, obviously, in the industry is that most users are just becoming, in general, way more data savvy these days. So building capabilities or tool sets to support data savvy users is becoming a lot easier. But it's not just about the software. It's about having the right overall vision to provide those types of capabilities and tools to the users.
Right, David. I just want to do a time check because I've got two information sources in front of me, and I just cross-checked them, and according to my watch, I've got 5 more minutes than the timer says. So if someone can just, yeah. So I've got the extra 5 minutes, have I? Yeah. Okay. Excellent. We have time for more questions in that case. And we have a question here in the middle.
On? Can you hear me? Nope. David, you had mentioned that users are becoming more data savvy. I'm curious to hear the whole panel's view on, certainly that's the case, but we're also used to things being a lot easier to use. So when you think about the consumerization of the enterprise, all of us who are building SaaS applications have to make it a heck of a lot easier to use and hide the technology. It ain't about that anymore. It's all about the ease of use of the application. How is that influencing what you guys do, which tends to be kind of data wonky by its very nature? So, sorry, didn't mean to.
Consumerization of BI, can it be consumerized?
Yeah. So I would say, I absolutely agree with you. I think that, when we talk about data, we have to be careful. When we talk about data and being data savvy, we have to really juxtapose that with the point of, again, we're trying to get people to be able to leverage this data well, right? And we've gotten to the point where data storage is so cheap and plentiful. And, and to throw multi-terabytes at a person isn't improving somebody's judgment call. It's not improving their life. It's not improving their job. It might actually be inundating them, right? And so simplicity is the key to that. The role of technology, the role of BI is to somehow, some way, filter all that information, no matter where it comes from, and no matter how much we're talking about, and make it so that a person, a team, a group, a department, a company can make reasonable, good decisions off of it. And you know what? In a sense, it is a little harder, right? Because now we actually have so many sources of data to contend with. We need to be careful how we weight the different types of data that we're accepting, right? We need to be careful about the quality of the data. I mean, you can throw these metrics completely off if you start pulling in junk data, right? Because we get so voracious, we want to just get data from every source, right? And so all those things really come into play. But at the end of the day, it is a lot like, somebody mentioned consumerization. It is a lot like that. The reason that technology, everybody is talking about the consumerization of technology, because at the end of the day, these are people, just normal people, that are empowered by, for example, mobile devices, right? Things that are so complex if you really took them apart, and yet somehow made so simple. And the same thing really is applicable to BI. If you talk about business intelligence, what I said earlier, I really do believe in. If you can make it so that a person can make those decisions, and even if they don't recognize or know that this is really BI, that's terrific. Because you know what? The point when they've started to go, oh gosh, I'm in a BI tool now, what am I going to do? You've kind of lost them, right? So in some cases, you want them to know they're in a BI tool because they want to look for those advanced, and sometimes you don't. And so, I think that simplicity aspect of it is certainly key, absolutely.
Yeah, I think very few people aspire to be data scientists, and even fewer probably to be business analysts. But I think everyone wants to make their sales figures at the end of the month, or get the prospects when they're ready to buy, or understand whether they're purchasing in the most efficient manner, or see what the trends are in their business so that they can be in the right place at the right time. And that's what we've got to do as vendors, is put the frameworks and the models in front of people that enable them to do that.
I would like to, actually answer your question very directly. I believe that, we live in in a world where people start to realize, the value of design and simplicity and so on. So your question is, what do we do to actually make it easy and consumer? It starts with, the composition of the company. We have one UI designer, UX designer for 2 engineers. In a typical enterprise software company, you get that ratio 1 to 100. So again, we live in a world where we look at Apple and Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook as the kind of guiding principle how to design applications. We definitely don't look at Cognos and business objects and the old tools, and that requires a fundamentally different development team, development process. Design principles and so on, and so it comes with a point of view. This is how beautiful and easy to understand UI and BI should look like.
Phil, I want to
Sure.
answer this from a different point of view, actually somewhat similar to yours. Okay, is I look at people out there that, and I do it in my own business. I'm wanting data all the time, in order to make business decisions. And that's really what people are using the data for, is to make those business decisions. And a mistake some people make is to go get that tool, but they don't know how to use it because they don't know what kind of data they need. And so they really have to understand what they're doing. Because, I'll look at my mobile device, I'll look at something like, God, if I only had this thing, the answer to this question. Well, you write that down. That's a requirement of something that you need in BI. And so us as vendors have to really first sit down with the customers and go, let's understand what are the issues that your business is facing, what are the key decisions that you make, what is the data that really backs that up, where does that data reside, and how can somehow we provide you with a BI solution that meets that. And if it does meet that, it'll probably meet it in a way that you will understand what it's telling you. And that's what makes it easy to use. So it's similar to what you...
Yeah, thanks, Eileen. I think that's a great summary. I think we had one more question on this side of the room. Yeah.
My question...
Yeah, it's on. Just go ahead.
My question is around whether you're seeing any trend or preference towards private versus public cloud in this area among your customer base, and also in terms of what you're seeing in your pipelines.
Right. Okay. So David, let me put that to you first, because you've got customers doing all, presumably. I mean,
Sure.
is there a preference between private and public cloud?
So I think it will depend most commonly on where the data is. So we'll obviously see more folks migrating towards the public cloud if they're connecting to or trying to integrate with public data sources or public cloud data sources. We have a lot of customers that work with data that's stored in common cloud-based applications like a Salesforce.com and those sorts of apps. So they might be more capable of deploying their business intelligence tools in a public cloud. Obviously, if data security and data sensitivity is a higher priority, we'll often see that being deployed in more of a private hosted environment internal to the organization. So I think It's a lot dependent on the use case, but certainly very dependent on where the data resides.
Okay, so we're just about out of time. The one thing that I would say on private versus public cloud is that, well, all clouds are public, actually, because if you build a private cloud and you're not expecting to connect into public cloud resources external, we've talked about the importance of being able to get information coming at you from all parts of the web. People are having to interact with their customers, with their employees across web infrastructure. So all infrastructure today touches the cloud, and therefore I think you need to think about public cloud principles when you're building a cloud, whether you think of it as private or as public. Now, I'm going to ask each of our panelists to finish with, I was going to ask you for a few sentences, but I'm going to ask you to try and keep it as close as you can to one word. What is the single most important factor for a successful BI deployment? What's your parting tip for our audience here today? Who's got a word ready first?
So I'll say agility. I think it's obviously important to be able to work with lots of different types of data, be able to work with lots of different types of implementations and environments, cloud, on-premise. And so finding solutions that are highly agile and capable of that are essential to a successful business intelligence implementation.
Okay, thanks, David. Good stuff. Robin.
Adoption, traditional BI, 80% of traditional BI projects fail to deliver business value. So if we want to be successful with BI in the cloud, we have to completely change that dynamics. And my goal is 100% success and adoption in all of our BI projects.
Eileen?
Yeah, what I believe it is in the planning and the understanding of the business needs. Somebody who's saying, I want to deploy, I want a BI solution, better understand why they want it, because they may pick the wrong solution.
Thanks. David?
Vincent.
Oh, sorry, Vincent.
I would say just success, and in the sense that, ultimately whatever tool you choose, whatever vendor you choose, you want to make sure that you're going to get your investment back. You're going to improve. The BI is going to help your company, yourself, just make life and your job, and of course your company succeed. And so success is the key factor. I think if you carefully consider all the things we've talked about today as a panel, do your own research, look around, look up each of us, see where we are, and just, ultimately find something that will help you succeed, no matter who or what it is.
Okay, so thanks for some great questions. Thanks for some fantastic answers to all of our panelists, and thank you all very much.